Okay, so you've all seen my review of Pokemon Legends EA by now, but just to briefly touch upon it, Pokemon Legends EA is a good AA tier game that has a fun gameplay loop. But what if the game introduced a loop outside of the current one, with a different set of currency for progression, different progress bars, and Pokemon? Well, that's oversimplifying a bit, but when you boil it down to its essential core, that's essentially what Mega Dimensions is. Let's go over it a bit and why I think this isn't the DLC for everyone, and who it's probably for. As always, even though the story has been out for a while, we are not going to go over the story aspect of the game. I will go over it the briefest bit for now, though, and say that the story, while not feeling too tacked on, seems to be a case study in different character interactions and resolutions while never fully committing to any of it, due to how post-game shenanigans tend to work in Pokemon games, and some other games in general, especially considering how hyperspace is sort of a cop-out. If they decide to do an epilogue for this game, like the Untold Story of Pecharunt, I will be uploading another review detailing the entirety of the game. It is nice that we're getting confirmation on who Ansha is, and get to see Corina again, as well as the Oras canonicity, but the game could have done so much more with the hyperspace setting. By the way, I'll go on a limb here and say that I assume that the Draconids are in fact related to the Ryukyuan people of Japan, an aboriginal group that is very similar to the concept of the Diamond and Pearl clans and their relationship to the Ainu, but that's just my interpretation of the text. So that aside, now let's get into the gameplay loop. Pokemon Legends EA Mega Dimension has a gameplay loop somewhere closer to a roguelite. You use berries to make donuts. You use these donuts to find pockets of hyperspace dimensions. You can then find better berries for donuts and rare Pokemon you couldn't before. You eventually make enough progress to fight a boss. You take down the boss and get better berries, and more berry slots while baking are open up to you. To quote Ed Sheeran, rinse and repeat this process until you've beaten the game. You can only fail your run in spectacular fashion if you're underprepared, but it usually only has the setback of using up your resources, your berries, rather than anything else. It's not a Breath of the Wild Eventide Isles situation either. You can have access to your team of Pokemon you want while in these hyperspace dimensions, and you can switch them out at will. Having a box full of level 100 Pokemon makes Mega Dimension easier. An easy and safe way to get to level 100 for now is to utilize the Battle Club rather than relying on drops from hyperspace, or in the long run aiming for 1000 battles required for Mabel's research, but that's just my opinion. This gameplay loop is addicting, however, as certain recipes for donuts will yield different results. Some make shiny Pokemon appear more often, others will increase the amount of drops you will find in pockets of hyperspace, others will increase your defenses and attack power, among other things. It's fun to see what kind of recipe will yield better effects, as these are almost always random, save for the special donut powers required to get certain mythical and legendary Pokemon in the story. Speaking of legendaries and mythicals, the DLC introduces 10 rogue mega Pokemon bosses to take down, each with different moveset patterns and a few new abilities, as well as rematches that can count toward your progression under a time limit. If your favorite part of the main story was the rogue mega Pokemon and figuring out how to take them down with an added layer of difficulty, then you'll be happy to know this DLC is for you. Now at this point you're probably thinking to yourself, is this DLC really worth $30? And I have to tell you that it isn't, not completely. At best it's a $20 or $25 DLC. Why do I say that? Areas and arenas. See, the DLC had the potential to add more unique areas for the player to fight in, but it just adds a few preset locations in hyperspace. While this is good for letting the player get their footing on the different configurations each hyperspace dimension has, and learning how to parkour, don't get excited, it's the same movement as the base game, correctly across scaffolding, where elevators are, it gets pretty old pretty fast, like insanely fast. While some hyperspace areas are bigger than others, some in the last leg of the game feel huge. There's nothing to really write home about. If you have your Pokédex completed, or 1000 battles under your belt, you'll feel even less of an incentive to go into these. I'd say that at most, by your 50th donut, you'll probably be tired by the DLC. If you do too much in the base game beforehand, and that's being pretty generous. Leave some of the post-game stuff for the DLC. By now you're probably thinking to yourself, well, this is all well and good, but how will I sell you on this DLC as opposed to the basic game? And honestly, I can't. If none of the other stuff sounds exciting to you or enticing, I only have one final aspect that's barely been touched upon by other reviewers, and that's online battles. Currently, as of me writing this, we are on Season 5 of the Rank Ladder Online Battle Club. This, along with the previous season, introduced Hyperspace Pokedex Pokemon, and in this season, a set amount of mythicals and legendaries in the mix, excluding the Hoenn Weather trio. While online rank can be fun, and reaching rank A helps a ton in getting rare items, there's a very little reason beyond this and shiny hunting that justifies the existence of this DLC. I know I talked up a good game about cohesion when it came to game design, but this DLC is honestly kind of a mess compared to previous DLCs. It's definitely experimental, but not very ambitious. I would call it safe, maybe even a bit of a slog in some cases. There's also the case of transferring Pokemon to the next game, but if you already have mythical Pokemon, like Marshadow, Magearna, Melmetal, or the RS Oras legendaries like the Eon Twins, Latios and Latias, you aren't missing much. To add further insult to injury, the legendaries and mythicals are firmly locked behind the hyperspace loop, and require quite the time investment as well as luck in order to easily obtain. Compared to how easy one could obtain Meloetta in SV, you can obtain it before even getting a single gym badge or beating the Teal Mask. So if you wanted to get more legendaries and mythicals for, let's say, future raids in Gen 10, much like how Arceus can be utilized in Gen 9 as either an attack or support set, or get different competitive sets for legendaries, you would have to play all over again in order to obtain them. I agree this sounds good on paper. I'm hardly complaining about it, but there's always that either, for lack of a better word, lazy type or that over-encumbered type in this game that will find parts to complain about in the series out there. By the time Champions comes out, this may fix things, but that remains to be seen, so I have to throw this section in here as a disclaimer. All in all, Pokemon Legends ZA Mega Dimension is sort of a mixed bag of a DLC. It's definitely interesting in the way it's implemented, but if you're either not a completionist, not invested in the Pokemon ecosystem, or do not want to get more out of your base game, such as shiny, hunting, or boss fights, this DLC is completely missable, which is a shame because the last set of played DLCs for the previous mainline titles were completely justified. If the game comes out with the rumored second DLC or epilogue, I'll put up a correction video on this. But for now, these are my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed them as much as I enjoyed putting them into words. Let's hope the next games are even better.